Good
All
evening.
right, here we go, everybody. Pursuant to Chapter 2 of the Acts of 2023, this meeting will be conducted via remote means in accordance with applicable law. This means that members of the public body, as well as members of the public, may access this meeting via virtual means. Participants may access this meeting through the remote meeting link as posted on the meeting agenda and through the town's online calendar. When required by law or allowed by the chair, persons wishing to provide public comment or otherwise participate in the meeting may do so by raising their hand or otherwise signaling their intent to speak. This meeting will be recorded. Please take care to mute your microphone unless you have been recognized by the chair. We will now confirm attendance of members. Please respond with present if you are on this call. Ron Foisey.
Present.
Arnold Cohen. Not right now. Nisha. No. Madhu. No. Sam.
Present.
Rachel Rawson. Vic Proddy. Vic, you were here a moment ago. I think you have to out loud say here. Still didn't hear. Are you muted? Did anyone else hear Vic?
Restart my computer, maybe.
Oh, I hear you now. Are you here, Vic?
Yes, I can hear you.
There we go. Curtis Smithson,
Present.
Mary Larson Marlowe,
Present.
and Kristen Borzamato. No, Kristen. Staff, John Gelsich, you here?
Present.
Wonderful. All right, for members of the public who are here, welcome to the meeting. We do have an update to the agenda. We will not be discussing 68 and 70 South Street, Hayward rezoning. The applicants weren't able to make it tonight, and it's our understanding they have updates to present. So it didn't seem to be a worthwhile discussion without their updates. So we're going to table that. I don't know exactly when our next meeting will be, but I imagine it will be in August sometime. So if you want to stick around to discuss MBTA communities, we'd be happy to get your input, but that is our only agenda item tonight, other than talking about the minutes. All right. I do like moving the minutes to the very beginning. This was May 22nd, 2024. I was not at that meeting. So other than seeing a grammatical pet peeve of mine, I have no comment on the minutes and I will be abstaining from the vote. Did anyone else see anything that did not represent? Oh, I see Arnold is here now. Hi, Arnold. Did anyone see anything in the minutes that did not represent what they heard in that meeting?
I'll go ahead and make a motion to approve the minutes as submitted.
Wonderful. And a second?
Second.
All right.
Discussion.
Is there
I got to know
discussion?
what that grammatical error was, Ted, since I wrote the minutes.
So I don't know if it's yours or if it is the comment, but it's a monster pet peeve of mine is using comprise and compose as synonyms. They are not. The whole comprises the parts compose the whole. So you might say my class comprises 35 students. My class is composed of 35 students. So I think it was when Sam said that the lot is comprised of multiple lots that maybe, or something like that.
It's not your fault, John. I said it wrong. You just exactly what I said.
I didn't want to assign blame, but I tell you what, if you're a student in my class and you say or write that wrong, you're going to hear from me. Anyway, that's all I saw. But still, I'm going to be abstaining from a vote on the minutes. Are there any other comments? No. So let's have a vote on approval of the minutes. Ron, yay or nay?
Yay.
Arnold? Arnold?
Yay.
Sam?
Yay.
Vic?
Yay.
Curtis?
Yay.
And I, Ted Barker Hook, will abstain. So that business is done. All right. The big reason we're here and what occupies my mind when I do think of zoning right now in town is the MBTA communities bylaw I know that this was discussed at the end of the last meeting and some ideas were kicked around, and we were kind of waiting for more specific direction from the planning board before we did anything. I don't know if, but I hope you have tried to watch some planning board meetings, at least as regards MBTA communities, because you know it's going to be homework for us. They did come up with a proposal that they wanted us to look at. My reading of those meetings, and Vic, you're on the planning board, so please correct me if you think my reading is way off. My reading of those meetings is there seem to be two schools of thought that present themselves. One is that we throw away the map that lost at town meeting and propose this: keep the downtown district the way we proposed it to the planning board and the way it went to town meeting. And then instead of Carbones and the preserve, instead include on the map the apartment complex in Legacy Farms South, also known as the Woodview Apartments, the Woodview area. Apparently there's no volume coming through. Is that you, John, or is that HCAM? Can everyone hear me?
We can hear you.
Okay,
It must be HCAM.
okay.
I'll check it right
HCAM.
now. Checking it right now.
Okay. Anyway, the Woodview Apartments be considered, and also the Windsor Apartments. We did in our initial discussions talk about Windsor, and we in the end did not include it in our map. John has done a little bit of work and asked some questions regarding having a map that is those three parcels. And I've asked John to give us an update on what he has learned, and then we as a group can discuss this proposal as well. So, John?
Thank you. All right. I'm just going to say it again because I think some people signed on after Ted said that we are not going to talk about the rezoning on South Street, Hayward Street, because I see some people that I know probably are here for that.
Okay.
So just since I have the floor, just to let everybody know, we are not talking about that tonight. It's going to be moved to the next meeting. They're not going to be here. They cannot make this meeting. So we're just talking about MBTA. All right. I am going to share my screen if I can find the button. So can you all see this?
Not yet. Yes.
All right. So this is the new proposed map from the planning board, given their direction. And you see my cursor?
Yes.
Okay. So you've got Woodview at Legacy Farms here. That's the current existing apartment complex. Downtown, which remains unchanged from the previous iteration that went to town meeting. And then Windsor at Hopkinton, that is over off of Lumber Street. And then you can see a little zoom in just to get a little bit better idea of what's here. And so that is what planning board suggested we look at. Get rid of this and bring up the compliance model. So plugging all of those details in to the compliance model from the state gives us this table. May look familiar to some of you. Get a little bit bigger. Can you read that?
Yes.
Okay. So this factors in the three different districts. Downtown remains the same. It's 18.7 acres, 11.6 units per acre for 217 total unit capacity. Windsor at Hopkinton replaces Preserve and Carbones up in the Upper Cedar Street district, and that is 35.3 acres, total of 530 capacity units and 17.7 units per acre. And then we add on Woodview, and that is 18.2 acres, 273 units, and 15 units per acre. So given all this, they would comply, or it could potentially comply. We can't guarantee that it would comply because we're just not going to be able to get it to the state to get that determination back. So we would assume, given these numbers, that it would comply. However, talking to town council and talking to Elaine Lazarus, town manager, and doing some thinking on my own, the Woodview we think will not fit into the criteria for the state. And that is because it was developed under the Ozma district, which requires a master plan special permit. And we talked about if it's possible to pull that out of that, but the way that we've interpreted the laws, the bylaws and everything else, once that parcel is developed as part of that larger development project, there really is no way to pull it out. And that's because the larger development project requires this building for units, open space, a whole bunch of other things that are woven in through the master plan special permit. And so you really can't add anything to it because there's going to be requirements under the master plan special permit that would prohibit that, since we're already, I think we're like 5 units short of the maximum units allowed under that whole master plan special permit. So some people might say that's great, they can't build on it, but the state's going to look at that and say that means it's not developable and therefore it's not eligible. And so we think we're pretty 99.9% confident we're going to have to pull Woodview out because it would not meet the state's criteria. So what that does is, and I think I printed it out, so let me find it. So what that does is that puts us into a position where, all right, I probably can't talk and look at the same time. I'm just going to pull up the actual model. So what that does is it puts us in a weird position where we meet most of the requirements. This is the compliance model for removing Woodview at Hopkinton. We meet the 15 units per acre. We meet the 50 acres. We are 3 units short of the potential unit capacity. So what does that mean? We could grab another parcel in downtown, put that into the downtown parcel and hope that that parcel, or, you know, we could grab a couple parcels, whatever we need to do to make that 3 unit loss whole again. But I wanted to bring this to you all first to talk about. The other thing we need to consider is we think the Windsor at Hopkinton can be included, but town council is currently doing some review and will give us a memo to let us know if that actually would be allowed, because it was developed under a comprehensive permit. And so if it's developed under a comprehensive permit, are you able to pull that out of a comprehensive permit now that it's allowed by right? Or are you, if you're developed under comprehensive permit and they are now allowed to do more units than they were approved for under the comprehensive permit, would they be able to add those units on under the MBTA communities bylaw? And therefore you could have units on that property that were not necessarily planned for under the comprehensive permit and could be added right away. So we're trying to get that information from town council. It's unclear right now as to how that would work. We may need to go to the state and ask them for an opinion on that. But those are really the 2 main challenges that we're facing with this proposed plan. I could keep on talking, but I'm gonna stop here. So I ask for any questions, because that's kind of the crux of the issue. So I'll stop here and ask for any questions.
All right, so I'll start with some questions, I suppose. John and I talked last week. Let me start with Woodview, John. Maybe I misunderstood last week. Maybe a new wrinkle showed up. What I thought I heard last week was the issue with Woodville was if we allowed MBTA type community development, it would knock out all of the open space requirements that are part of that development. It would make much more of Legacy Farm South developable than it is currently. Is that not the concern? Did I misunderstand that? Or is there an even bigger concern now?
I think it's the even bigger concern now.
Okay.
Because it's, can we even have it considered eligible by the state at this point? And the answer is pretty much no. We're
Okay.
waiting for maybe a little bit more confirmation on that, but town council, Elaine and I all just don't see how it would be approvable by the state, given that any developer would have to jump through these massive hurdles that would probably get shot down in several different points of the process. So we just don't see how the state would ever even consider that an eligible parcel.
Okay. My other question has to do with the Windsor lot. Is there a chance you could pull up a map that can zoom in on that parcel? Please?
How zoomed in do you need to be?
I don't know, just so we can see that part of the neighborhood, so we can get a good look at the shape of the lot and kind of sketch out where current building is on it.
I can, if we need more, I can bring up the GIS. It's just going to take a little bit of time to load it up,
Okay.
but we have the PDF. And I see people putting stuff in the chat. I cannot monitor that right now. So if there's any questions, I would recommend that you raise their hand.
So let me just ask if we can turn off the chat, that would be great. I like getting the message that sound wasn't coming through, but we're not going to conduct meetings over chat. If there's something somebody wants to contribute to the meeting, we will have time for public comment, and I'll ask you to speak up at that point. Otherwise, please don't use the chat if we can't turn it off.
I have turned it on.
So yeah, if we could either zoom in on the insert way up, there we go. Okay. So I don't understand, John, all of the terminology you threw out in the kind of legal concerns with this. It was built under a certain set of conditions, and the question is whether putting MBTA over it would make those. Help me again. Can you restate what the worry is with that in less planning board speak?
So a comprehensive permit is more casually or less formally known as a 40B project.
Okay.
Right. So this was a 40B project. As part of the 40B process, developers can forego local zoning and build to certain levels as long as they meet criteria at the state level, right? And part of that is 25% of the units have to be affordable, which makes the entire lot affordable.
Okay.
Because this development was built under a comprehensive permit and that's how it was approved, it's unclear whether if the MBTA communities allows them to do more units, it's unclear whether they can actually just build those units right now, or if they would have to go through a process to pull it out of the comprehensive permit and then build those units under the underlying zoning, which would be the MBTA communities.
Okay.
And if they have to pull it out of a comprehensive permit in order to develop it, does the state consider that similar to Woodview, where it may be too onerous for developers to actually develop it, and therefore development is effectively prohibited by those conditions that are already on the site?
Okay. So again, when you and I talked, there was maybe it's the same concern, maybe it's different. The reason I wanted you to zoom in on the lot is you can kind of see under the checkerboard there, you can kind of see the gray where the buildings are, everybody, yes? Well, in the southern portion of that lot, there's nothing built. And it's unclear if that's a leach field. There are no wetlands there, and the wetlands don't come terribly close to it. So when John and I were talking, a worry I had was, well, the Windsor apartments are built, and it's, if a goal is for the planning board and for us and for the town to not have a lot of building immediately as a result of the MBTA overlay, one thought was, well, those Windsor apartments are brand new. Nobody's going to buy them and knock them down and build new apartments. And a worry I had was the southern arm of that lot is completely unbuilt, and that could potentially become new housing. But I guess what I'm hearing, John, is because the whole lot is under 40B, they couldn't do that necessarily either because of the regulations of the 40B approval. Or something.
So that's what we're unclear about.
Right.
We're unclear if the state would allow, or we're unclear as to what the state would allow on a parcel that has a 40B comprehensive permit on the property and the current housing stock that's on that property.
Okay. So if the state wouldn't allow it, then that is an unacceptable parcel to the MBTA communities bylaw, according to the state. Am I-
Potentially,
If the state did allow it, then there is the potential of the southern arm of that lot potentially being developable right away.
yes.
Okay. Amy, I see you. If I could just hold up for a second and I can ask the committee if they have any questions, but I see your hand. All right, so those are my two questions for now regarding the planning board's proposal for us to look at.
Yeah, Mr.
Members. Go
Mr.
ahead,
Chairman,
Mr.
can I ask
Duncan.
a question? Can I
Yes,
ask-
please do, Arnold.
All right, so part of it is I'm kind of confused. I know I saw this proposed new article with the changes. Is this Windsor lot that looks like it's off Lumber Street, is that the Lumber Street sub-district?
I think it is. Is that right, John? Because it's off Lumber
It's
Street.
the neighborhood mixed use district.
Yeah, well, anyways, but under the proposed bylaw, there's two new areas that are gonna be included in the MBTA districts.
Well, we're asked to consider them.
Yeah, well, to consider it anyway, so one of them is Lumber Street sub-district, and the other one is, and then the other new one is Legacy Farm sub-district. So is this hash mark parcel that's off of, looks like it's off of Lumber Street, is that the same thing as is on page 4 of this proposed revised article?
Or are you just asking if it's the same as the reference in the bylaw?
The proposed bylaw, yeah. Is
Yeah,
that-
yes, this is the Lumber Street sub-district in the bylaw. The apartment complex is the Windsor at Hopkinton, so that's why we're calling
Okay,
it.
and then the third one, which is new, is Legacy Farms subdivision.
That's this one.
Is that the one that you said at the beginning would
Yeah, so
not be
Legacy Farm
feasible?
sub-district is this guy. Lumber Street sub-district is this guy, and downtown sub-district is this guy.
And Legacy Farms is
the
also
Legacy
known as
Farm-
Woodview.
Yeah, the apartment
That's
complex is
Woodview, okay,
Woodview.
so, yeah, so that, all right, yeah, I just wanted to clarify that, so, yeah, so I reside at, the Trails, which is off of Legacy, Farm Road, but it's a different part of it, you know, we're Legacy Farm North, so didn't
Right.
affect us at all anyway, but it sounds like it's out of the, which I would have thought is out of the, not in the picture anymore, okay, that's all I was asking.
And I think Arnold and everybody else, when we offered our first map, and the idea of Legacy Farms North or South was thrown out, John suggested very early on that it would probably run into a legal morass that would make it unworkable. And now we have town council and Elaine saying John was right back then. At least it seems that way. Other committee members, questions for John or me or comments?
Hey, Ted, and
Go ahead, Ron.
Thank you, Ted. Just a question about the discussion at the planning board level. Maybe Vic, you can answer this. What was the general feeling about that other opportunity Ted talked about, just putting the same one out there again? Is that still a possibility?
Vic, do you want to answer?
sure. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Just want to make sure. Yep. So, Ron, we just from the planning board meeting, as we initially did summarize it, what we are trying to look as the options, because there's a concern about the Carbonis and everything, what's coming across and the feel of the town, how it was voted down in the meeting, just to make sure that we sell this out back to the town in a better possibility way. If as a committee of us, if we see that nothing's working out, then we just have to get back to the board saying that, hey, we waited it out and we looked at the options and this is what it is.
So what I heard, Ron, is the reason and again, Vic, tell me if you think I'm getting this wrong. The reason it lost at town meeting was for a variety of reasons. Different people at town meeting had different reasons. If I were to break it down, one is the residents at the preserve were a loud voice that said, we don't want our townhomes rezoned. Another was kind of a, we fear that these are not safe enough. Particularly Carbones is a developable plot of land, and it's going to bring growth very quickly, more quickly than you, the planning board, and we, the zoning advisory committee, thinks. And then that will put pressure on schools and services, et cetera. A third reason I heard is the state shouldn't be telling us what to do, and we're not going to do anything that the state tells us to do. So there is a contingent on the planning board. My reading is they think that for reasons 2 and 3, the planning board and I at town meeting just didn't present the case well enough, didn't have enough information, could have had more explanation to bring to the table. And had that come through, enough votes would have shifted and that first map would have passed. And so those members seem to be in favor of at least trying, exploring the idea of representing the same map. The other group says, look, town meeting voted it down. I don't care how close the vote was. And it was an 8-vote difference, a 5-vote swing. But town meeting voted it down and we have to listen to town meeting. And if we present the same map, we'll be thumbing our nose at town meeting. Those are the two sides I've heard. I see, I'm coming right back to you, I promise. Vic, did I capture that?
Yes, just one thing I want to add that, John did a lot of, PR work and educational sessions, and he was always available. There was a lot of back and forth happened before we presented to the town. So I think we did our best, but again, those 5 votes is what we lost at, and
Yeah.
That's it.
Go ahead, Ron.
Just that we know Woodview is not going to work.
Yep.
If we stick with the downtown district and the Lumber Street subdivision and just I'm trying to think of how to leave the preserve out of it, but move the Carbones thing in. That would give us the extra units that we need, unless, John, you think we can get the extra units by the just adding some extra parcels downtown, which would probably make more sense. But I really think, Ted, that you guys did a terrific job of presenting the information to people before the town meeting. And I just hate to see all that effort really go down in flames, because I thought it was a really good proposal.
Thank you very much. I saw another hand pop up. Was that Vic? Who was that? Thought I saw.
Yes, that's me.
Oh, go ahead. Yeah.
So yeah, one thing is that, another part of it which came back during the discussion, again, when I was interacting with the people outside the town meeting, they keep asking the same question what we asked, what exactly we are losing on this, the dollar amount which we'll lose from the state, which was not clear. And also, if the state is suing us, which is practically a blackmail thing, sorry to say this, but that's how it's been coming across, either vote it or we will sue you, kind of a thing. What is the percentage of amount that we are losing during filing this case, the lawyer fees and everything? That part of it wasn't clear. The town people were trying to ask about this. That's one which I wanted. Second one, which I just want to ask, again, it's more of a clarifying question, and pardon my memory. Did we also look at the lots of, the Unibanks, Starbucks, and the opposite lot where we have 110 Grill, those shopping complex lots, to convert this as an MBTA? I wasn't sure, or can we consider them?
I don't remember considering them at all. Kind of the commercial area we thought about besides downtown was South Street. And I think we weighed South Street for a little bit and then ultimately decided we didn't want to risk the potential loss of commercial tax base. But I don't think we did talk about Starbucks or Hiller's Pizza or that lot.
Right. The only reason that, thanks for clarifying, the only reason I was bringing this up right now, if we have to comply with the law and leaving the preserve out, if we take these two lots out, does that comply us? Again, it's just an open discussion, just a thought process from mine.
So you're saying one idea would be to keep that purple area potentially, although it may not work legally,
Right,
but add to it the shopping district right next to it.
yes, next to it and the opposite to them, maybe, to just to make up our numbers.
Okay. Other committee members, just chime in because I can't quite see you anyway. I'm happy with you just popping in. And if no one's got anything, I'll go to you, Amy. Don't hear or see anything. Go ahead, Amy, please. Of course, name and address.
Yep, Amy Ritter-Bush, 54 Grove Street. So I guess my questions that John may have looked into, and I don't know, the Lumber Street development did have a host community agreement with the town and the select board when it was built in, that we would agree to put in water and sewer for the good develop, and the developer would agree to do other things. And I just wondered how that would be affected by, if we change the zoning, would they, like, I don't know if the town attorney, I guess, would need to look into that, and I just wondered if they had yet. And right, because would we be stuck then providing more water and sewer for them, because that's what it says in the host agreement, or would we be stuck having to renegotiate the host community agreement? I'm just not sure. It's just an open question. And then the other thing, I think Vic brought this up too, the more we can get documentation on the grants we would lose, and I think I heard now the state is offering new grants that we would not be eligible, or no, new grants that you could only get if you had complied with MBTA Communities Act. So it'd be good to know what those all are. And my impression is, if when the Attorney General sues all the towns that don't comply, I don't think they'd be suing us for money so much as I was assuming they would sue us to become in compliance, and that they might potentially draw the map for us. But I don't know if that's the case. And if that's the case, I would rather that we pick and draw the map, not have the Attorney General tell us what map to have. Anyway, those are my thoughts.
I'll leave the first to John for a second if you have thoughts, John. The second is, yeah, I don't know, Amy. I don't know what lawyers do. But I think the money questions I've understood is, what would it cost us to defend ourselves? Not what would the fine be if we ultimately lost the court case. And what struck me, and I don't know if it struck everyone else way before me, is the goofy part about it is, if we didn't comply and if we got sued, our tax money as Hopkintonians would go to town council to defend us, while our Massachusetts tax money would go to the state to sue us. We would be paying for both sides of the lawsuit through our taxes as residents of the town, which is a supremely absurd position to be in.
And I want to make sure it's clear that I think you guys are doing a good job, and that we do need to bring a plan forward that we really hope can pass. I just want the public to kind of understand what the consequences might be if we don't. And so I was happy with the previous plan. This new plan looks like it has some potential too.
Thanks. John, about Amy's first question about providing water or sewer, do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, that's a great question to ask. And I will follow up with town council about that. I would assume, well, we'd have to look and see what the host community agreement says, because if it's just like a point in time agreement where if you're doing this development and we have to provide water and sewer connections, fine. If it's something that's like an ongoing thing that says, in perpetuity, the town has to provide these services to these number of units, or some ratio of service to unit provision, that might be affected. So we'd have to look at that and see what it says. So I can't really answer that right now. But then I think you had another question about the grant money and that type of thing. And I kind of said it several times, and it's tough to kind of wrap your head around, I guess, but we don't know how much money we would lose, because we can always look at the grants that we've received for work, but that work is done. And we're not going to do that work again. We're not going to redo our downtown. We're not going to rebuild Legacy Farms Road North. It's the stuff that we're going to do in the future that we would miss out on. So an MWRA line, water line down Cedar Street, would probably use MassWorks funding. We would be ineligible for that. We're currently in the process of doing grant work for the Municipal Vulnerabilities Preparedness Program. we may, you know, depending on the timing, we may have that funding revoked in the middle of a project, and we would be ineligible for future projects or for future grants through that program. And then there's a whole bunch of other grant programs that we could use that we haven't in the past. The Mass Downtown Initiative grant program, that's to revitalize your downtown. We wouldn't be eligible for that. So it's hard to put a number on that because we don't know what projects are going to come up in the future that we would then be ineligible for. And even projects that we're familiar with, the MWRA waterline project that's being discussed, we don't know how much we would get from MassWorks. So we can't say how much we would lose because we don't know what we would be getting. So it's a really hard question to answer, and I understand it's unsatisfying, but it's almost, you kind of put yourself into a trap if you give a number out because there's no way you can prove that.
I'm going to say really quickly, because it looks like the room is filled up again. For those who weren't able to make it at the beginning of the meeting, we will not be talking about 68 and 70 South Street, Hayward Street today. The applicants couldn't make it tonight with some additions, amendments to their proposal. So we're tabling that. If you are here for that discussion, you're welcome to stay. But hopefully we'll have a meeting in August and we can pick that issue up again. So if you're here for South Street, Hayward Street, we will not be discussing that tonight. Any other thoughts on, it looks like really our discussion right now is on this property because we've kind of already crossed off Legacy Farm South. Even if this gets approved by the town, I am much more concerned about development of the south portion of this lot than I am concerned about the Carbonis lot. To me, that looks more developable than Carbonis. Does anyone else share that, or am I missing something?
Ted, I would just be skeptical as to why weren't more units put back there at the time. There has to be something economically that makes that less than desirable to develop.
Unless I misunderstand John, I think he gave us the answer, which I didn't have before tonight, which is under the agreement for the 40B apartments, they were limited in how many they could build. Would that be accurate, John, or at least a good guess?
I don't know.
Okay.
I was not here for that, so I don't know what the discussions were. I don't know
That's
if they're
a
in the host community agreement. There
reasonable
may have been some
hypothesis?
limitation. Potentially, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any other thoughts on these parcels? Could we, John? really-
John,
Oh, go ahead.
John, is
Okay.
there a way we can find out why was those south parcel was not developed anyway? Just out of to have a better understanding. That's all. Is there some way we can know the background of it?
Yeah, I can look. I don't know if there is a solid answer. It could just be that the developer could only get funding for a certain amount of development. I don't know. I can take a look, but I can't promise a
No
satisfying
problem.
answer.
No, appreciate it. Thanks, John. Thanks for looking into it.
Vic, what I will share this. When I looked at it, and I didn't spend a lot of time poring over it, I assumed that it was going to be a lot of wetlands back there. There certainly are wetlands in the area, but I didn't see any on the map. Certainly not in that property, and it didn't seem to come very close. I thought that was going to be the answer. There's got to be a reason, right? But apparently it's not the wetlands reason. So maybe we can find out more. John, do you think you could give us a look at downtown again? Let's, for a second, say, all right, let's keep this section on the map and let's assume that town council says, yeah, actually you can do this and the state will accept it. So if we did that, then all we got to do is find space for 3 more units downtown and we have 2 districts. Am I understanding that correctly, John? That would be a route to go if Windsor were okay?
Yes, however, we would need to look at how that plays into the density. Because we have to say 15 units per acre, and let's say if we take that out, so if we take out Woodview, we are at 15.3 units per acre. So adding, depending on the parcel, it's counterintuitive, but depending on the parcel in downtown, adding more land may reduce the density. And so we'd have to play around with it and see how that works out.
Right, I see. So just looking downtown, and I'm not officially proposing a thing. If we added the service center there on the corner, oh no, it's already there. Wait a minute. Is that then the bank or the Domino's that's just off the map? What's the first property right there? Is that Domino's or the bank? I think
That's the
Domino's.
bank, I believe.
Oh, that's the bank.
Yeah.
So
then
that's
you
a
get
pretty
bank,
small,
Domino's, and police
that's a
station.
pretty small parcel compared to, say, the police station. So that might work out mathematically better than if we added the police station as far as the density requirement. Am I understanding that?
Possibly. Yeah, we'd have to run the model. I don't.
Right. No. I'm not saying it's guaranteed. I'm just trying to understand roughly the way the model works. All right, committee, have a look downtown. What do you see, given that rough guesstimate that you think might be included, that keeps us within the density requirement, so a small parcel, that also makes sense for us?
Yeah,
If we were to keep Windsor.
I think the Domino's and bank building right there would be a logical extension to the downtown. I mean, we're only looking to pick up 3 additional units. And we just cross our fingers that it stays above the 15.
Okay. Other thoughts? Certainly coloring in a map wise, that looks prettiest rather than jumping across to, I don't know. I don't even remember the names of the buildings. Pantai, jumping across and coloring in Pantai looks a little funny. Including the church, I don't think is the right move. Okay. No other thoughts. I think I agree with you, Arnold. If that is the route to go, and we don't know that it is, and I have real concerns in different ways with the Windsor apartment area, but if that's the way to go, we'd have to find out if adding the bank and Domino's would get us there with Windsor. Is that a worthwhile homework assignment for you, John? That's
Yep.
a yes.
So, yep, just adding those 2 units and running the model.
And
Or
if,
two-
if
sorry,
it's
2
not
parcels.
tons of extra work, what if we just added the bank? And then do we have to add both, or does adding both screw it up because now it's too much land and we lose
I
the
can try. I can try both iterations.
Yeah. And then we can wait for more answers on Windsor. The answers are legally, is that allowed? What does it mean about water and sewer? I think Amy raises a really good question. I never would have come to me. And if we can get more information on why the south portion hadn't been developed, those I think are all really important questions for the Windsor property. With that said, what I thought we might do is revisit some properties that we did kick around before and ultimately left off the map. If we were to go way back in time, I think we had a homework assignment to show up with a proposed MBTA overlay map. And I presented one that had way too much land, ultimately. I had no idea how many acres I was adding, but I just started throwing parcels on, and then we trimmed way back on it. But it might be worth reviewing some of those. And honestly, I don't remember why many were removed, other than, well, we don't need it. We don't need that land to meet the requirements, so why add it? The first one I do remember was South Street. There was discussion about taking a parcel or 2 of South Street and making it MBTA. And what we decided, it felt close to unanimous, but it took a little arm twisting is not the right word, convincing of 1 or 2. But what it felt like is we were worried that we are giving up potential commercial tax base if we allow that to become residential. And I share that worry. I think in my original map, I included 1 parcel on South Street, but was very happy to take it off my original map. I would love to keep South Street as a commercial area, potential commercial tax base. The kind of businesses that have been moving in, I would love to not turn that over to residential. So I'm proposing we continue to not consider South Street. Does anyone want to push back? No, I know, Ron, you wouldn't. I knew for sure you like leaving South Street alone. All right, so if Windsor doesn't work, and we're pretty sure Woodview doesn't work, if we are to help planning board propose another map, what else do we consider? Well, here were other things that were on my original map. The Elmwood School. Now, I remember hearing that would not be allowed after we removed it anyway, but I can't remember why. I don't know if it's because it's still a school and it will be for another couple of years, or if there was another reason. John, I think you might have been one who said it would not be approved by the state. Can you tell us why? Or am I wrong in that memory?
Yeah, so it's a publicly owned parcel, which means that in order to dispose of it, the town would have to do an RFP. And then that would be considered onerous for a developer because the town would have to put restrictions on it and the whole rigmarole of that. And so any person that would want to develop that would be up to the discretion of town meeting to dispose of it in the first place. And then once it is passed through town meeting, what that RFP would look like. And so it would be considered essentially too difficult to develop by right.
Okay. And we did talk about Center School, but also removed it pretty quickly. That would run into the same problem, even though that wasn't part of our discussion back in the winter.
That would be the same problem.
Right. Okay. So another property that I had on my initial map was the Indian Brook condos over by Elmwood. That situation, although it's not close to the MBTA station the way the preserves is, but it would be a similar idea as including the preserves on the map. It's already relatively higher density. It is not close to public transportation, either the MWRTA, Rapid RTA. It's not near the MWRTA routes. It's not near the train station. It's not near any public transportation, but otherwise it would run into a similar idea to including the preserve. Is there a chance, John, that we can use the map that you got us in on and scroll over to that? So you don't have to pull up a full planning map. It would be, no, there you go, right in there, somewhere. There you go. So that was one area I had on my initial too much land included map, and then we removed. Is it worth reconsidering? Does anyone, and John, do you see any reason it could not work with the state?
I'd have to look into it and see what permits it was developed under, but I believe it was just under probably like a garden apartment, which would be fine because that's what preserve was done under.
All right, committee. So if we couldn't do Windsor, if we can't do Woodview, if they are not re-proposing the original map, what are your thoughts on Indian Brook Townhomes?
Yeah, we can certainly look into it. I mean, I'm for it.
Is it preferential to Windsor? Did I use preferential correctly there? Is it better than Windsor?
Alternative to Windsor, yes.
To me, the part that makes it better, well, first of all, we had all the legal stuff, throw that away. If we could include Windsor, I'm worried about the southern portion. This doesn't have a southern portion. It would require purchasing buildings and knocking them down for a developer to think it worthwhile, which might not be true at Windsor. I think it adds to traffic problems. I think Windsor adds to traffic problems. But I guess Indian Brook would strain a neighborhood of houses more than Windsor would. It's not as big a parcel. Well, actually, looking at the whole parcel, it might be similar. I'm just looking at where the houses are. Okay, so that is one of the ones that was on my map that we threw away. And then the other one is north of downtown, the Walcott Valley Apartments, which would not be contiguous with our other downtown, but it would be walking distance if you could find a way to zoom over there, John. It would be easily walking distance to downtown, which then would get you to the MWRTA bus. And if they do build the extension to the train station in Southborough, there it is right in the center there. It's a pretty, well, again, the actual parcel stretches north quite a bit. I think that's all wetlands in there, so it wouldn't be as developable. So it's not as big an area, but that was another one that I had on my initial map. So again, John, do you have any immediate, that wouldn't work because?
No, not off the top of my head. Again, depending on the permit that it was
course.
under, but
Of course.
I think it's going to be similar to Preserve or any of the other garden department.
Okay.
developments.
All right, committee, any initial thoughts on that one?
Yeah, Ted, for either that or the Indian, was it Indian Ridge, is it? Or
Indian Brook?
Maybe anywhere, Indian Brook, you know, this is gonna be at a special town meeting, which I don't think it draws as many people as the annual town meeting. And there's always a possibility just the people whose neighborhood is gonna be affected, they're the ones who go there, and I don't know the answer to that, but it's my impression that's a factor. But I don't know how you get around that if you want to do it at the special town meeting, you know. I think you have to really explain to the people that it's really not going to affect them, because it's only if everybody has to be bought out, you know, and that Indian losing my
Brook.
Brook, gonna be like Biden. You know, there's a whole bunch of houses. I don't know how a developer could go in there and what would they do? Just buy a couple of the houses or all the houses? I don't know how it would work. You know, we already have an established development. As
Yeah,
opposed to like,
and I don't know either. We did learn from the Preserve that their condo committee, but that's not the right term. But we did learn how hard it would be for a developer to develop that, because they would have to be, if not unanimous, almost unanimous in agreeing to sell their property. I don't know if the same rules would apply for the townhouses at Indian Brook or not. I don't know if a developer would have to get everybody owning townhomes to agree or not. For Walcott Valley, again, there are a lot of houses around there. I think you're right about not in my backyard. We're going to run into that no matter what happens in the planning board. But I think those are apartments with people renting. So a developer would have to convince the landlord of the apartments, not all the residents. I think that those are apartments, not owned townhomes or condos. So that would be a different circumstance as far as actually buying the property and redeveloping it. But certainly the ABC Street neighbors might have something to say if we put that under an MBTA communities bylaw map.
yeah, I mean, it seems to be easier with an apartment building where you just have one owner who could, if you pay him enough, the owner would presumably be willing to sell it.
I think that's the case at Walcott Valley, but I haven't done any homework, but that's my impression, is that those are apartments with people signing probably 1-year leases, 1-year rentals. So that would be a different circumstance for a potential developer than the Preserve, certainly, and possibly probably Indian Brook.
Yeah, and you may not have the NIMBY factor with that either.
Well, you would with the neighbors, I think,
Yeah,
certainly.
maybe, yeah. You know, I remember that when we tried to do something in that area there a little while ago, you know, it's whenever you try to do anything with zoning, it's always comes into play.
Uh-huh. Does anyone else have thoughts on Walcott Valley? Okay. So then, while I was prepping for this meeting, one property popped into my head that we did not consider before, and I have not put a lot of thought into it. So this may be a really bad idea even to bring up. But what about Hopkinton Country Club? Hopkinton Country Club, the benefit would be, number one, I don't think that they're ready to sell very quickly, but it's privately owned, so it doesn't run into, you got to work an agreement with the town and go to town meeting. It is way on the edge of town, so if it were developed, my guess is the traffic is heading north, not into Hopkinton, exacerbating our Main Street traffic issues. My guess is the traffic would go north and then try to find Route 9, Route 30 up in that direction pretty quickly, or heading on over to the 495 connection by Route 9. I think it's a big hunk of land. I don't know anything about how hard it would be or easy it would be to convince, or even how it works to buy a country club. I don't know if it's owned by one person. I don't know if the membership co-owns it. I don't know how it works. Does anyone have thoughts on Hopkinton Country Club as part of an overlay? John, is there any chance you could zoom up there so we can see how big the parcel is? Now, clearly, there are no houses you have to buy and knock down or buildings you have to buy. Oh, I mean, there is the clubhouse and stuff, but it's not like you got to pay for a whole bunch of houses. That might make it more affordable and more attractive. At the same time, I think those who are members of the country club love being members of the country club and probably have no interest in the members themselves. Of course, I don't think own the country club. They pay their dues annually, so they're not making any money if it gets sold.
Yeah,
I do know through Conservation Commission, there are some wetlands issues up in there. You can see just north of the darker green shading of the country club, there's some light green undeveloped area. While on the Conservation Commission, we had a developer looking into buying and developing a couple houses in there. But a combination of wetlands and the steepness of the slope down to South Street made it so the Conservation Commission was not in favor of developing that. I don't know if that would lead to problems if someone did buy the country club property and try to develop it. I don't know if that would make it more or less developable. So I'll shut up. What do you guys think about that?
Through the chair?
Yes, please, Mary.
My initial gut reaction is that I would not want this on the list and that other people may react that way. Even though it's not publicly available open space, it's still open space. It's still greenery, so it still provides that, at least, for non-members, at least from the road.
Yep.
So that's my initial reaction.
It is somewhat natural. And I know you well enough to know that you and I both like to protect the natural, even the somewhat natural. Vic?
Well, the idea is good, but honestly, personally, I'm not in favor of it to change the country club, because that is one location where it has its own perks for the town. Also, just
I'm sorry, it has its own what?
It has its own advantages of having a country club for the town members, for the
Oh,
town.
it provides a service or a purpose.
Yes, that's right. Another one, if I remember correctly, during our initial discussions, no matter which lot we choose, there should be a way or a kind of a transportation to the, the nearest commuter rail.
Yep.
I don't think so. There is a transportation available for the country club today as on date for this one. So is that something we have to plan as part of it if we choose any of these slots?
So we are not, because we are an adjacent community, we are not required to fulfill the development or overlay within a half mile of a transportation station. Our original plan, while that was not required, we thought it was a good idea. And part of the reason we put Carbones and the preserve is because it was close to the MBTA station. It would encourage more public transportation use. It could lessen demand for traffic because it's also not near downtown. The residents would likely be driving to work through downtown. So this one is not as perfect. It's not as close to the train. However, part of the reason, and again, I am not a huge proponent of this. I'm throwing it out there just to hear what you guys think. I do think it would, if it were developed, I think the traffic would flow north. You certainly cannot walk to the train station from there reasonably. But it's not that long a drive. And it's a drive that would take cars out of Hopkinton, not pull them in. But we are not required to be close. After all, the Woodview and the Windsor apartments are nowhere near public transportation of any kind. And that's what we were asked to look at. So, Amy, I don't know if you have to give your address every time or not. I don't know what the rules are.
Yeah, Amy Ritterbush. I was just gonna say I would lean towards putting this on the list. What I'm thinking is that I think golf courses are prime for development, and I think this would be pretty likely to be developed into housing if it were sold. I think golf is kind of a declining sport in this country. It's expensive to maintain those courses, and people are selling. Like there was a golf course in Millis that was just torn down for housing, or not torn down. There's not, but redeveloped totally for a lot of the housing units.
Yeah, I'm not pushing back hard, Amy. Was that a public or a private club?
Private.
It was a private club. Okay.
Yep, I went to many a wedding there, but no more. It's gone. And now I know somebody that lives in one of the houses.
Oh, it was one of the clubs that had houses at the club? Or no, they moved into one
No, the golf course is gone, and now it is a lovely neighborhood of houses.
Yeah.
So anyway, I think somebody would buy that one up. Yeah.
Do you have any idea how ownership of a country club works? Is it like a corporate entity? And if so, it may be providing corporate business taxes to the town the way it is.
That I don't know, but I think it is owned by a board. Sorry, I think it's governed by a board, and I think people buy into it. If you have a golf membership, you have an ownership stake, and you have to vote to sell. Yeah, but I have no idea what their membership levels are. If they've got people clamoring to get in, or if they have memberships that they need to sell.
Yeah.
Ted?
Yes, Arnold.
So I don't have any real way of knowing, how feasible or whatever it is, but just thoughts, I guess, is that, who owns it? You could just check in the assessor's office and find out who owns it. I think that, I could be wrong, but I don't think the members of the golf club own the land.
Yeah, I don't think so either.
I moved here from Sharon, and in Sharon, there was a Spring Valley Country Club, and the owners wanted to sell it to a developer who would put up real big subdivision. And there's a lot of people against that. Golf course is kind of pretty and everything, and it's open space. So what wound up happening is that they preserved the golf course, and then the developer put up expensive condos around the golf course. But
that's true. That's a route they could go, golf course housing.
Yeah, I mean, it's, a lot of, that's considered to be desirable, I think, to have a home near the golf course, unless, you're getting the golf balls going through your windows and everything all the time too. But so, I mean, whoever owns it, I guess if they wanted to, they could just sell it to a developer and try to put up a subdivision now. I don't know how many citizens of the town of Hopkinton are members there. They might be against it. They probably would be, but my view is it would be difficult. I don't know, could cause the article to lose, but that maybe goes for any of these. Anywhere we go, you might have that problem.
Yeah.
Well, Ted, it's owned by Rebel Hill LLC.
Ah,
I happen to have the map up from a little earlier research.
you ever heard of them? They happen to own like 50 country clubs. that they buy and sell like monopoly properties?
I have no golf knowledge whatsoever.
All right, again, I was not favoring it. It just occurred to me that we didn't bring it up before, so I thought I'd bring it up. But it sounds like, and again, I didn't need to be convinced even, but I think I'm with you. I don't think I like it as a proposal. I want to make sure that we are doing everything we can to consider as much as we can when we go to the planning board, and for the planning board to also be able to say at town meeting, listen, we spent time thinking about property all over town. So I'm kind of trying to check that box too when I throw out the country club. I imagine you have similar thoughts then with the Rod and Gun Club. I don't know about wetlands down there, but the Rod and Gun Club further along on Lumber Street, that would be a similar situation to the country club, unless it has even more wetlands, making it even harder to develop if we wanted to. But that has no homes. It has a degree of naturalness to it with the natural sound of gunfire. But I imagine nobody is feeling like that is a good property to include or consider. There's a hand up at the top. Sam, did I go past you? Or are you jumping in on the Rod and Gun Club?
Well, no, I actually raised my hand, and then you wrapped up on the country club, so I lowered my hand. But then you
Oh.
said the gun club, so
Sorry, I missed you. Do you want to say something about the country club?
yeah, for me, a similar feeling. I think for both of them, where if they were to be, regardless of, I don't know what the ownership looks like, but if they were to be privately owned, this incentivizes them to be turned into something that I'm not a fan of.
Yeah.
And also both the gun club and the country club, regardless of the structure, have significant vested interest by the membership for it not to be abandoned as a country club or a gun club. I am a member of the Rod and Gun Club, and I would not want it to be turned into anything else. So, so I think that would face significant pushback.
Out of curiosity, and again, I'm not pushing for the golf club or the Rod and Gun Club. I'm just trying to explore. How many members are there at the Rod and Gun Club? Do you know?
I do not know.
Hundreds? Dozens?
Oh, probably several hundreds for sure.
Several hundred.
I can find out if it.
Whereas the Preserve produced 45 people coming to town meetings saying, don't do this to our land. The Rod and Gun Club could bring 250.
Yeah, they like to
Right,
they like to
possibly.
mobilize. I'm a member also, so
Very possibly, yeah. Look at the we don't want to bother the birds article. So
Well, I will say that one had other problems besides.
I know, I get that, but I think you would see similar response from the membership where people would
Yeah.
show up, so yeah. And I would have to declare, if that was a zone, I'd probably have to say abstain from partaking
Yeah.
as a member.
Again, I'm not pushing for it. I'm just trying to make sure we're doing our part to explore areas in town. Unless anyone has a counter argument about the Rod and Gun Club. Does anybody have any other parcel that maybe that I'm not remembering that we considered that ought to get reconsidered? Or does anybody have a parcel that has eluded us and maybe is as quickly dismissible as the country club or the gun club, but that we ought to at least give an airing to? I remember, Sam, you were looking especially at that one little property across from the reservoir, but it's got state land running along the road.
That's really
wasn't a fan
unfortunate.
of that property anyway, but
That's really unfortunate. And I think John at the time told us that it's the same as the state may look at this as a non-developable because of that little strip of land that separates it from the road. But I think the location would have been great. So.
Well, we don't have to discuss it. I had other reasons I didn't like it very much, but that's off the table.
Yeah.
Anything else?
didn't we discuss the Golden Pond assisted living?
Yeah, I think we did, and I forgot that we discussed that. Can we go over there, John, just to give us an image to look at? Maybe for the people at home or on HCAM? Does anybody remember thoughts about zoning Golden Pond? There's the parcel. Can you just kind of outline it, John, real quickly? It's got the pond, it's got the woods, it's a lot of wetlands back there, and it's got that building. Boy, if we did Indian Brook and Golden Pond, those neighbors there on Elm Street are not going to be happy. Thoughts on Golden Pond? My initial thought is that's a lot more traffic on Main Street if it does get developed. That's lots and lots going straight onto Main Street. Probably half of that lot is developable where the building is right now. So acreage wise, it's not going to be nearly as big as what that lot says it is. Does actually the MWRTA bus goes out to Price Chopper, doesn't it? And then the next stop is downtown? Or is there a stop over there by Hiller's Pizza? Does anybody know?
There is a stop downtown.
Right. And I think there's a Price Chopper stop.
Yeah, and I think there's some stops in between those as well. The stop is actually Town Hall. And then there's a flag down stop on Legacy Farms South. That
Okay,
is
a little further
potentially gonna
along.
become a permanent stop.
I know there's a little pull out there by the Golden Pond that I'm not sure what the
There's a little
purpose of that
parking
is,
area,
if that's a
right?
place. I don't know if that's parking for something else or where the bus would stop or what the purpose of that little pull out is, but I do remember noticing that.
Yeah,
General question regarding traffic. Large projects I've worked on in other states and municipalities and stuff. We had to present a traffic plan showing the impacts. And then the developer was responsible for mitigating those impacts, whether it be upgrading the nearest lights, adding turn lanes, adding a light at our driveway. Is that something that enters in? I'm not that familiar with the approval process here. Is that something that is required for a larger development in Hopkinton?
John, Vic, Mary, you guys have thoughts? Do you remember anything from planning board about that? Mary says no. Vic says no. John says no. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I was just wondering if that would help with everybody always, whatever piece we look at. It's just going to destroy the traffic there. We're never going to get anywhere.
Yeah.
Maybe we should start requiring some of that. I recall having to add a second turn lane to a 6-lane road because we were a quarter mile down the road and we were going to increase the traffic enough that it was going to affect that. You know, developers don't like that, but it is required in certain areas. So maybe a long-term thing we need to look at.
I'm just looking at who's in the room. I'm just going to say one more time, just in case, we are not discussing 6870 South Street, Hayward Street tonight. That is no longer a part of our agenda. So if you're here for that, you're welcome to stay as we, I think, get near the end of our MBTA communities discussion. But we will not be discussing South Street. That'll come up in August, assuming we can find a good day for a meeting. If you're here for anything else, feel free to raise your hand if you have thoughts on MBTA communities. All right. So here's where I think we are. We don't know, as the zoning advisory committee, whether we would recommend to the planning board considering Windsor or not. We don't know if it would fly legally. And then we have other questions about if it did fly legally, do we think it's a good idea? So we're not ready to offer any thoughts to the planning board on that until we hopefully can get some more answers. Does that accurately reflect where we are? Does anyone disagree with that summation?
I concur.
Okay. We are of the opinion because John is pretty firmly of the opinion that Woodview Legacy Farm South isn't going to work at all, and we can just cross it off the way we did the country club just now. Is that true? If Windsor is legally state approved okay, then we still have to consider, do we think it's a good parcel, especially my concern with that south portion of the parcel. If we think it is, then our question is, if we add the bank and or Domino's, do we get where we need to be? Is that accurate? If Windsor doesn't fly and we want the planning board to consider other properties, if Windsor doesn't fly for legal reasons, or we think it's not a good idea, I think what we're left with now is Indian Brook and or Walcott Valley and or Golden Pond. Is that true? So John, I tell you this all the time, and I mean it sincerely. I never like giving you extra work. Just looking at the properties, my bet is Indian Brook downtown and Walcott doesn't get us to where we need to be. But could you take a look at that and see what that does for us? And if need be, Indian Brook, Walcott Valley, downtown, plus the bank and Domino's, if those little bits make the difference again. Otherwise, Windsor adding the bank and Domino's, where does that put us as far as the numbers with the state? Have I accurately summed up where we've gotten, committee? There's a big thumbs up from Ron. Mary, good. Does anybody in the room, John, is there anything else you want us to do today?
Don't think so.
No? Okay. Does anybody in the room have anything to add before I ask if we can get a motion to adjourn? A dad joke, mom joke, anything?
You didn't
Can
find to
I-
talk.
Yes, Amy, go ahead.
Have you guys gotten a timeline from Connor yet about all the different deadlines and steps you'll have to meet to get to town meeting? I think that would be good to keep in mind, because I think
No,
you have
we
to
have
have
not.
a hearing on the map and all.
Yeah, we have not. I don't know if you guys on the select board have a sense of that. Do you have anything you can share with us, what you think the timeline will be?
Well, I think we said it would have to be in December because Connor is too busy with the state elections in September and November.
Yeah,
But we didn't get any more detail than that. I'll certainly ask at our next meeting.
okay.
So, through the chair, Amy, I think it was either September or December because October and November were busy, but we haven't heard.
October.
Yeah, we haven't heard
Yeah.
if September is going to be an option, and I'm guessing at this point it might not.
That's pretty close.
September seems very soon.
Okay,
And add that since I had the GIS map open, I clicked on the Indian Brook area and it lists a bunch of individual parcels. So it may be that that's not a joint owner or a condo type situation.
is the preserve listed as one parcel or a bunch of individual? On the
Yeah, so I think it's going to be the same as a preserve because they're condos. So the owners own the buildings in those address, but the parcel itself underneath is owned by the trust.
Okay,
Okay, yeah, just,
so we
I'm
would
guessing-
probably want to know what their condo agreement is as far as selling and what if it would be a majority vote or if it would be something else.
So that's not going to be known unless I reach out to them. And if I reach out to them, they're going to ask me why.
So maybe we just don't ask yet and just see what including it does with the numbers.
yeah, the preserve has the same listing as the Indian Brook. So yeah, that must be.
Okay. John, does that give you some homework and hopefully not overwhelming homework?
Yep.
Okay. All right. Before we're done then, can we look at a calendar for, when is the next planning board meeting, John?
Monday, the 5th.
Is MBTA on the agenda?
It can be.
I don't know if it should be or not. Because my next question is, should I go to that meeting or can you represent what we got accomplished tonight?
So it's not on the agenda right now. I don't know if the chair is going to ask to put it on the agenda. I really don't know if they're waiting for Zach to bring something back to them or if they want to continue talking about it separately.
Okay.
So I'll have to reach out to the chair and just see if he wants to have it on the agenda. And then I don't think you need to attend. I think I can
Okay,
give an update just so you don't have to attend another night meeting.
okay.
To the chair, I believe, John, we were waiting for the Jack to come back for the planning board with so that we can continue discussion. That's what I remember the last discussion when we brought it back to Zach on the BTA.
Yeah, but then I think Matthew had been bringing it up just to talk about generally, but I don't know if they want to continue that conversation or if it was just that last meeting. So
Got it.
yeah, to your point, Vic, they did continue and waiting for Zach. I just don't know how much more they want to discuss it. So
All right, well, John, let me know if there's anything I need to do for that Monday meeting.
Okay.
Peace. All right, can we look at a calendar in August? My road trip is done. I am available all August as far as I know. What are possible dates that make sense, John?
okay, let's see. August 12th is wide open. I don't know if that's a holiday.
Is that 3 weeks out or 2?
That is 2.
Oh, yeah. Today's the 29th, not the 22nd.
And then planning board has a meeting on the 19th, and then there's the 26th that's open. If we want to do it on Monday, there's obviously more days open.
Let's stick with the Monday ideas. Do you think, John, for any more legal clarifications, we could get anything in the next 2 weeks, or should we wait till the 22nd?
No, I hope we can get something from town council relatively quickly.
All right, well, then I think the responsible move would be the 12th. You said the 12th, right?
Yes.
What do you guys think? Can you make it on the 12th?
I have a conflicted on 12th.
Okay.
I'll be traveling, so
I don't see anyone else saying, there's a thumbs up from Sam.
I'm not available on the 12th.
All right. Maybe, John, could you send the email offering both dates and we'll see what is the best day for a quorum? Yep.
Yep.
Okay. All right. Any last words, thoughts? Can I get a motion to adjourn then, please?
So move.
Second, perfect. Let's go through the roll call. We'll start at the bottom this time. Mary,
Yes.
Curtis,
Yes.
Vic,
yes.
Sam,
Yes.
Arnold,
Yes.
Ron,
Yes.
and Ted Barker Hook is also a yes. Thank you, everybody. Between now and our next meeting, please look for John's email. Between now and our next meeting, try to put a little bit of thought into our discussion tonight, maybe poke around the map, see if other things come to you. As we try to help the planning board set the table for town meeting. Sound good? Thank you, everybody. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, John.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Everyone. Thank you.